I used to think I had a motivation problem. Every Sunday night, I would sit at my desk feeling strangely optimistic. I would open my planner, make a brand new timetable, highlight every subject I was going to study, and then tell myself, this week is going to be different. Monday would go well. Tuesday, not too bad. But by Wednesday, I would start falling behind. Thursday became, I'll catch up tomorrow. And before I knew it, it was Sunday again. Another week had passed, and somehow I'd convinced myself that next Monday would be my fresh start. And maybe you've experienced this too. And the funny thing is, I never ever lacked ambition. I wanted good grades, I wanted to make my parents proud, and I wanted to become someone who genuinely enjoyed learning. So if my goals were so clear, then why was I still so inconsistent? And for the longest time, I blamed myself. I thought, maybe I was just lazy. Maybe I just wasn't disciplined enough. So I tried everything. Motivational videos, productivity apps, new stationaries, prettier schedules, and even waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, because apparently that's what successful students do. And every single time, yes, it worked for a few days, but after a few days, I went back to where I started. But one sentence completely changed how I thought about studying. James Clear wrote, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems." And at first, it sounded like any other motivational quote. But then I realized my goals had never been the problem, but my system was. Like every time I wanted to study, I didn't actually start studying, but I would spend 10 to 15 minutes looking for notes, looking for past papers, decide which topics to revise, or trying to remember where I put my worksheets. And by the time everything was finally at my desk, I didn't even feel like studying anymore. And that's when something clicked. Maybe I didn't have a motivation problem. Maybe I had a friction problem. And James Clear describes friction as anything that makes a habit harder to start. And suddenly, everything made sense. Every study session of mine came with tiny obstacles. None of them were actually difficult on their own, but together, they quietly drained all my energy before I could even answer a single question. Like, just imagine if brushing your teeth meant walking downstairs, unlocking your cupboard, finding your toothbrush, and then making your toothpaste, and then walking back upstairs. You would probably brush your teeth a lot less. Well, not because you're lazy, but because you made the habit unnecessarily difficult. So I stopped asking, how do I become more disciplined? And I started asking, how do I start making studying ridiculously easy to start? And that question changed everything. Instead of trying to become a more motivated person, I became a better designer of my own environment. I wanted every worksheet, every past paper, every formula sheet, and every mistake I would ever make to all be in one place. I wanted to study the moment I decided to study. No searching, no printing, just open and begin. And that's when my iPad quietly became the best investments I have ever made. Not because it magically improves your grades, because it doesn't. The real value wasn't the iPad itself, but it was the system that I built on it. Every subject had its own folder, every past paper was already imported, and every PDF was already organized. And whenever I got a question wrong, I added it into what I call the error notebook. And months later, this notebook became one of the most valuable things I own. Because instead of revising everything, I was revising myself. Like my actual weaknesses, my actual mistakes. So whenever exams came around, I never had to wonder what to study because my mistakes told me. And if I remembered a difficult question months ago, I can just search one keyword and find it in seconds. And then something unexpected happened. I didn't study because of more motivation, but I simply became more consistent. Not because I studied longer, but because I studied more often. Looking back, I would spend years trying to force myself to study harder instead of studying easier. But once I removed the friction, consistency became natural. And I think that's the lesson I want everyone watching this video to remember. Whenever you use an iPad or a laptop or a stack of notebooks, the tool itself does not change your life, but your system does. The best students are not always the smartest. Very often, they simply build an environment that makes studying easier than procrastinating. So if you've been calling yourself lazy, instead of asking, what is wrong with me? Ask, what is getting in my way? Because sometimes the biggest obstacle is not lacking of discipline, but it's a system that's quietly working against you. And for me, redesigning that system happened to start with an iPad. And for you, it might look completely different. But whatever it is, build a system that makes the right choice the easiest choice. You might be surprised how little motivation you actually need. That's all for my video today. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to follow along my journey.